The stars had been quiet for 30 years. Not peaceful. Never truly peaceful, but quiet. The kind of silence that comes after a great storm. When everyone is too tired to fight anymore. Ambassador Yuna stood at the observation deck of the transport ship, watching the lights of distant colonies drift past. She was 53 years old now, with streaks of gray in her black hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. She had been 23 when the war ended. Young enough to remember the fear, old enough to carry the scars. The war with the Galactic Council had lasted 15 years. 15 years of burning colonies, of children growing up in bunkers, of funeral ceremonies held in the cold vacuum of space. Humanity had been expanding through the galaxy, colonizing new worlds, building new homes. The Council had decided this was unacceptable. Young species were supposed to wait. Young species were supposed to ask permission. Young species were supposed to know their place. Humanity had refused to know its place. The Council was made of 12 elder species, races that had traveled between stars when humans were still living in caves. They controlled most of the known galaxy. They made the rules. And when humanity ignored those rules, they sent their fleets to teach a lesson. But humans learned a different lesson. They learned to fight. They learned to survive. They learned that the elder species were not gods, just older. And older did not always mean stronger. The Treaty of Kepler Station ended the war in 2317. Humanity was given 17 star systems, a small corridor of space far from the rich core worlds. They were given limited trading rights, limited expansion rights, limited everything. The Council wanted humans contained, controlled, safe. Yuna had been part of the team that negotiated that treaty. She remembered the Council representatives looking at humans like they were dangerous animals that needed to be caged. She remembered swallowing her pride, signing papers that tasted like defeat, smiling when she wanted to scream. But she also remembered what her mentor had told her that day. We signed this treaty not because we accept it, but because we need time. Time to grow. Time to prepare. Time to become something they cannot ignore. 30 years had passed. Humanity had used every single day. On Titan Station, Admiral Taiho reviewed the latest intelligence reports. He was 61 years old, a veteran of the last war who had risen through the ranks on skill and stubbornness. His office was simple, decorated only with a photograph of his parents who had died when their colony was attacked. The reports made him angry. Council ships had been increasing patrols near human space. Council diplomats had been making demands. Council spies had been trying to learn what humans were building in their shipyards and research stations. Taiho knew what this meant. The Council was getting nervous. They had given humanity 30 years to recover, and now they were wondering if that had been a mistake. His communication screen lit up with an urgent message from Earth Command. General Junho wanted a meeting. Taiho was not surprised. Things were moving fast now. On the Council Citadel, a massive space station that served as the seat of galactic government, Yuna faced the Council speaker. Vrethkai was a creature from nightmares, standing 3 meters tall with a body covered in hard black shell. His species, the Vrethkin, had been space travelers for over 100,000 years. They considered humans to be barely more than clever animals. The Council has decided, Vrethkai announced, his voice clicking and buzzing through a translator device. Human military installations will be subject to regular inspections. This is not a request. Yuna kept her face calm. 30 years of diplomacy had taught her to hide her emotions perfectly. The Treaty of Kepler Station guarantees humanity the right to self-defense. Inspections of our military would violate that right. The treaty also states that humanity will not develop weapons that threaten galactic peace, Vrethkai replied. We have concerns about your activities. What concerns? Your shipyards are producing vessels at an unusual rate. Your research stations are shielded from our sensors. Your population continues to grow beyond projected limits. The speaker leaned forward, his compound eyes reflecting Yuna's image 1,000 times. You are becoming dangerous. Yuna wanted to laugh. Dangerous. They had been dangerous 30 years ago, when they were young and unprepared. They were far more dangerous now. We will consider the Council's request, she said carefully. It is not a request, Vrethkai repeated. You will comply, or the treaty becomes void. Yuna understood the threat. If the treaty ended, the Council would have legal grounds to attack. They were looking for an excuse. They wanted to finish what they had started 30 years ago. She returned to her ship and sent an encrypted message to Earth. The situation was worse than anyone had feared. The Council was not interested in peace. They were interested in control. And when they realized they could not control humanity, they would try to destroy it. On Earth, President Sujin read the message in her private office. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind like a blade. She had been a child during the war, hiding in underground shelters while Council bombs fell from the sky. She had grown up promising herself that humanity would never be that weak again. She called a meeting of her most trusted advisors. General Junho, Admiral Taiho, Dr. Minji from Project Ember, and Ambassador Yuna, joining by secure communication from her ship. They mean to break us, Sujin said, before we become too strong. Then we must decide, Junho replied. Do we submit? Or do we prepare for what comes next? The room was silent. Everyone knew what submission meant. Inspections would lead to demands. Demands would lead to restrictions. Restrictions would lead to control. In 20 years, humanity would be a slave species, building ships for the Council and mining resources for the elder races. But refusing meant war. Real war. Against an enemy that controlled thousands of systems and had been fighting wars for longer than humanity had existed. Teho spoke first. I did not rebuild our fleet to surrender it. Minji nodded. Project Ember is ready. We have weapons they have never seen. Yuna's voice came through the communication system, tired but determined. They will never see us as equals. They will always try to control us. The only question is when we decide to stop letting them. President Sujin looked at each of them. These were people who had given their lives to protecting humanity. They had survived one war. They were ready for another. Then we prepare, she said. And we wait for them to make the first move. The fragile peace was about to shatter, and humanity was ready. The Council's demands came like a storm that grew stronger each day. First they wanted inspections. Then they wanted access to shipyards. Then they wanted to limit how many children humans could have. Then they wanted to shut down all artificial intelligence research. Each demand was delivered with the same cold message. Comply or face consequences. General Junho stood before a room full of military leaders and scientists. He was a tall man with a soldier's posture and a strategist's mind. Behind him, screens displayed maps of human space, showing the positions of Earth's 17 colony worlds. They're testing us, he said. Each demand is more extreme than the last. They want to see how much we will accept before we push back. Captain Do-Wan raised his hand. He was younger than most in the room, only 35, but he commanded one of Earth's most advanced warships, the SS Defiance. What happens when we do pushback? Then they will claim we broke the treaty, Junho replied. And they will attack. Dr. Minji stepped forward. She was a small woman who wore simple clothes and spoke in a quiet voice, but she was perhaps the most important person in the room. For 15 years, she had led Project Ember, humanity's secret weapons program. While the Council thought humans were building simple patrol ships, Minji's team had been creating something far more advanced. They are afraid of us, Minji explained. She brought up charts and graphs on the main screen. Our technology grows faster than any species the Council has ever seen. 17 times faster than their own development rate. In 50 years, we will be more advanced than any of them. In 100 years, we will be beyond anything they can imagine. Admiral Taiho crossed his arms. So they want to cripple us now, while they still have the advantage. Exactly, Minji said. Every demand is designed to slow our growth. No AI means slower research. Population limits mean fewer scientists and engineers. Shipyard access means they can sabotage our military. They do not want peace. They want to put a leash on us. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The Council would never accept humanity as an equal. They would always see humans as a threat to be controlled or destroyed far from Earth. Captain Dowan sat in the command chair of the Defiance. His ship was patrolling near the border of human space, watching for any signs of Council movement. For 3 weeks, everything had been quiet. But Dowan had learned not to trust quiet. His sensor officer, a young woman named Jiwon, spoke up. Captain, I am detecting multiple ships approaching. Council signatures. Dowan leaned forward. How many? 6 warships. Heavy cruiser class. Jiwon's voice was calm but tense. They are not using the approved trade routes. They are heading directly for us. The Council had no reason to send warships through this sector. Trade vessels, yes. Diplomatic ships, maybe. But warships meant only one thing. Battle stations, Dowan ordered. But do not power weapons. Not yet. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. The Defiance was a destroyer, smaller and faster than the approaching cruisers. In a fair fight, they would be outgunned. But Dowan knew that his ship had capabilities the Council did not know about. The Council fleet stopped at the edge of weapons range. A communication request came through. Dowan accepted it. The face that appeared on screen belonged to a Vrethkin commander. Its black shell gleamed under the lights of its bridge, and its compound eyes stared without emotion. Human vessel, the commander said. You will submit to inspection. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Dowan kept his expression neutral. Under what authority? Under the authority of the Galactic Council. Under the authority of the authority of the authority of the Galactic Council. All human military vessels are now subject to security review. I have received no such order from my government. Your government does not give orders here. The Council does. Dowan felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. He had been a boy during the last war. He remembered the stories of what the Council had done to human colonies. The burned cities, the mass graves, the children who never grew up. I will not allow you to board my ship, he said. The Vrethkin commander made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. You have no choice. Submit or we will fire. The other Council ships powered their weapons. 6 heavy cruisers, each one larger than the Defiance. The math was simple. If Dowan fought, he would die. But if he submitted, something worse would die. The pride of every human who had fought and bled so that Earth could remain free. Jiwon, Dowan said quietly. Prepare fold space engines. Jiwon's eyes widened. Fold space was humanity's greatest secret. The ability to bend space itself, to travel instantly from one point to another. The Council did not know humans had this technology. Using it now would reveal everything. Captain, if we use fold space, they will know. They will know eventually, Dowan interrupted. Better they learn now on our terms. He opened the communication channel again. Council Fleet, this is Captain Dowan of the ESS Defiance. I am refusing your order, and I am leaving. The Vrethkin commander's eyes flickered with confusion. Leaving? You are surrounded. You cannot. The Defiance vanished. One moment it was there, surrounded by enemy ships. The next moment it was gone, reappearing 3 light years away in a flash of folded space. The Council ships were left staring at empty void. Dohan immediately sent a message to Earth Command. They are not here to inspect. They are here to provoke. War is coming. Within hours, the message reached President Sujin. She read it in silence, then called Ambassador Yuna back from the Council Citadel. It is time, Sujin said. We tried peace. They do not want peace. They want submission. Yuna arrived on Earth 3 days later, tired and angry. She had spent 30 years trying to build bridges with the Council. 30 years of smiling at creatures who saw her as an animal. 30 years of hoping that maybe, someday, they would accept humanity. Now she understood the truth. The Council would never accept them. The only thing the elder species understood was power. And humanity had been too weak to demand respect, but they were not weak anymore. General Junho presented the military situation. Human forces were smaller than the Council's, but they were more advanced. Project Ember had given them weapons that could change the rules of war. Fold space technology would allow them to strike anywhere, anytime. Admiral Taiho added his assessment. We cannot win a long war. We do not have the resources. But we can win a fast war. Hit them hard. Hit them everywhere. Make them understand that fighting us will cost more than it is worth. Dr. Minji nodded. The Ember weapons are ready. We have been preparing for this day for 15 years. President Sujin looked at each of them. Then she made her decision. Recall all ambassadors. Activate all defense systems. Tell our people to prepare. She took a deep breath. We are walking away from this treaty, and we are never going back. The message from the Council arrived on a cold morning. President Sujin read it in her office, with Admiral Taiho and General Junho standing beside her. The words were formal, polite, and filled with threat. The Galactic Council demands full disarmament oversight of all human military forces within 30 standard days. Failure to comply will result in corrective action. Corrective action. Such clean words for such ugly intentions. Sujin knew what corrective action meant. Fleets of warships descending on human colonies. Cities burned from orbit. Millions of people killed to teach a lesson. She set the message down. They are not even pretending anymore. Taiho's jaw was tight with anger. 30 days. They know we cannot disarm in 30 days. They know we would never agree. This is not an ultimatum. It is a declaration of war with extra steps. Junho nodded. They want to claim legal justification. When we refuse, they will tell the rest of the galaxy that humans broke the treaty, that they had no choice but to attack. Sujin walked to her window and looked out at the city below. Seoul had been rebuilt after the last war, bigger and more beautiful than before. Children played in parks. Families walked along clean streets. All of it could be destroyed in hours if the Council sent their fleets. But she had not spent 30 years rebuilding just to surrender it all. Prepare the response, she said. I will address the assembly today. The United Earth Assembly gathered in the Great Hall that evening. Representatives from every human colony, every nation, every settlement watched as their president took the stage. Behind her, screens displayed the 17 worlds of human space, shining like jewels against the darkness. Sujin spoke without notes. Her voice was calm, but carried to every corner of the hall. 30 years ago, we signed a treaty. We signed it because we were tired of war. We signed it because we wanted peace. We signed it because we believed that if we show good faith, the elder species would eventually accept us. She paused, letting the words settle. We were wrong. A murmur passed through the crowd. Everyone had suspected this truth, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. For 30 years, we have honored every term of that treaty. We stayed in our small corridor of space. We limited our expansion. We asked permission to trade, to travel, to exist. And what did we receive in return? Suspicion, contempt, demands that grow more extreme each year. Our voice grew stronger. Now they demand we surrender our military. They demand we stop having children. They demand we cripple our own future. They call it oversight. They call it security. But we know what it really is. She looked directly at the cameras that broadcast to every human world. It is slavery. And humanity does not kneel. The hall erupted in applause. People stood, shouting and cheering. Sujin waited for silence before continuing. Today, I am recalling Ambassador Yuna from the Council Citadel. Tomorrow, she will deliver our response. We are withdrawing from the Treaty of Kepler Station. We are no longer bound by its terms. And we will defend our people with every weapon we have. The next day, Ambassador Yuna stood before the Galactic Council for the last time. The Great Chamber was vast, designed to intimidate younger species. 12 sections held representatives from the elder races, their strange bodies and stranger eyes all fixed on the single human woman who walked toward the speaking platform. Yuna had dressed carefully for this moment. A simple black suit, no decorations, no jewelry. She wanted to look like what she was, a professional delivering a message that would change history. Speaker Vrethkai watched her approach. His compound eyes showed nothing, but Yuna could sense his contempt. To him, she was still just an animal pretending to be civilized. The council recognizes the representative from the human territories, Vrethkai announced. You have come to present your government's response to our requirements. Yuna reached the platform and stood straight. She did not bow. She did not show any sign of submission. I have, she said. The United Earth government rejects all demands made by this council. Furthermore, we hereby withdraw from the Treaty of Kepler Station. The treaty is dissolved. Silence. Then a wave of reaction swept through the chamber. Clicks, buzzes, hisses, sounds of shock and anger from a dozen different species. Vrethkai leaned forward. You cannot withdraw. The treaty was signed by your predecessors. It is binding. Treaties require good faith from all parties, Yuna replied. You have shown no good faith. You have used the treaty as a cage to contain us while you prepared to destroy us. We will not be caged any longer. This is foolishness, another council member spoke. It was a creature that looked like a floating mass of tentacles, representative of a species that had been traveling space for 50,000 years. You cannot survive against us. We have 10,000 warships. You have hundreds. This is not a war you can win. Yuna smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You fought us 30 years ago, she said. You had more ships then, too. Yet here we stand. You call us young. You call us primitive. But every year we grow stronger. Every year we learn more. And you are afraid of what we will become. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every species present. The United Earth government gives all council vessels 72 hours to exit human space. After that time, any council ship found in our territory will be considered hostile and destroyed. Vrethkai made the clicking sound that passed for laughter among his kind. Destroyed? You think your small fleet can threaten us? I do not think, Yuna said. I know. She turned to leave. At the door, she paused and looked back at the speaker. You gave us 30 years of peace. You thought you were containing us, controlling us, but you were not. You were giving us time. Time to prepare. Time to build. Time to become something you never expected. Her voice was cold and certain. "We tried to be your partners. You treated us like animals. So now we walk away. And when we come back, it will not be as your subjects. It will be as your equals. Or as your conquerors. The choice is yours." She walked out of the chamber without looking back. Behind her, the Galactic Council erupted into chaos. Some called for immediate attack. Others warned of the unknown dangers. But they all agreed on one thing. Humanity had just challenged the most powerful force in the galaxy. And now there was no going back. Una boarded her ship and sent a single message to Earth. "It is done. Prepare for war." The message traveled at the speed of light across human space. On every world, on every station, people heard the news. Some were afraid. Some were excited. But everyone understood that the fragile peace was over. Humanity had walked away from the treaty, and they would never walk back. The Council fleet launched 7 days after Una's speech. 400 warships, the largest force assembled in a century, moved toward human space like a wave of death. They expected a quick victory. They expected humans to see the size of the fleet and surrender. They expected this war to last weeks, not months. They were wrong about everything. Admiral Taiho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the S Horizon, watching the enemy fleet approach on long-range sensors. Around him, officers worked in calm silence, preparing for the battle that would decide humanity's future. 400 ships, his tactical officer reported. Mostly heavy cruisers and battleships. They are coming in standard formation, no surprises. Taiho nodded. The Council was arrogant. They fought the same way they had fought for thousands of years. They believed their numbers would overwhelm any enemy. They did not understand that war was not just about numbers. "Signal all defensive platforms," Taiho ordered. "Activate stealth mines. Prepare ember weapons. And tell Lieutenant Commander Yunji her squadron is cleared for the first strike." Yunji was 32 years old, small and quiet, the kind of person you would not notice in a crowd. But behind the controls of a warship, she became something else entirely. Her squadron of 18 destroyers had trained for years for exactly this moment. Her ships were equipped with fold space drives, the technology that Captain Doan had revealed during his escape. They could jump instantly across space, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. The Council had never faced anything like them. The Haiyan Nebula lay between the Council fleet and human space. It was a cloud of gas and dust that would hide Yunji's approach. She positioned her squadron inside the nebula and waited. The Council fleet entered the nebula with confidence. Their sensors were powerful, their ships were strong. What could 18 small destroyers do against 400 warships? Yunji showed them. Her ships folded space, vanishing from one location and appearing directly behind the Council flagship. In 3 seconds, they fired everything they had. Ember missiles, weapons that burned with contained starfire, struck the flagship's engines and command center. The massive ship shuddered and went dark. Before the Council could react, Yunji's squadron folded space again, appearing on the other side of the fleet. More missiles. More damage. Then they vanished once more. The Council fleet was thrown into confusion. Their commanders shouted orders. Their ships turned to face threats that were already gone. Yunji appeared again and again, striking from impossible angles, destroying 3 more ships before the fleet even left the nebula. By the time the Council reached human space, they had lost 20 ships and their confidence was shaken. But there were still 380 warships remaining, and they were angry. The first human system they attacked was New Incheon, a colony world of 4 million people. The colony's defense fleet was small, only 12 ships. But they had something the Council did not expect: orbital defense. Platforms armed with ember weapons. The platforms were hidden among the asteroids that orbited New Incheon. When the Council fleet approached, the platforms opened fire. Beams of contained star energy cut through shields and armor like they were paper. 15 Council ships died before they even knew what was hitting them. The battle for New Inchin lasted 3 hours. The human fleet fought with desperate courage, using their smaller size and faster speed to dodge enemy fire while their platforms tore apart the invaders. When the Council finally retreated, they had lost 42 ships. The humans had lost 8. News of the victory spread across human space. For the first time, people began to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could win this war. On the colony world of New Bizon, things were harder. The Council managed to land ground troops before the orbital defenses could stop them. 2,000 enemy soldiers, heavily armed and determined to crush human resistance. Sergeant Haniel was 40 years old. A career soldier who had been too young to fight in the last war, but had spent his entire life training for the next one. He commanded a unit of 40 Marines, and they were the only force standing between the Council troops and the main civilian population. The terrain favored defense. A narrow mountain pass was the only route to the city behind them. Haniel positioned his Marines in hidden positions along the pass walls and waited. The Council troops came with confidence. They had numbers and firepower. What could 40 humans do against 2,000 warriors? Haniel showed them. His Marines did not fight fair. They did not stand and face the enemy in open battle. They struck from shadows, planted explosives, collapsed tunnels. They used the mountain itself as a weapon. Every meter the Council advanced cost them blood. The first day, the Council lost 100 soldiers. The second day, 150. By the third day, their commanders were screaming for reinforcements that could not come because the human fleet controlled the space above. Han Yuo lost people too. By the fourth day, he was down to 28 Marines. By the fifth day, 21. They were exhausted, wounded, running low on ammunition. But they did not retreat. On the sixth day, reinforcements finally arrived. Human dropships descended from orbit, carrying fresh troops and supplies. The Council ground forces, surrounded and demoralized, surrendered. Haniel walked through the captured enemy camp, looking at the prisoners. They were strange creatures, beings from a dozen different species, all brought together by the Council to crush humanity. Now they sat in defeat, unable to understand how they had lost. One of the prisoners, a reptilian creature with intelligent eyes, spoke through a translator. "How did you hold us for so long? You were so few." Haniel looked at the mountains behind him. At the pass, his Marines had defended with their blood. "We were fighting for our home. You were fighting for someone else's orders. That is always the difference." Across human space, the pattern repeated. Every system the Council attacked became a trap. Human technology was superior. Human tactics were unpredictable. Human soldiers fought with a fury that the elder species had forgotten was possible. Lieutenant Commander Yunji became known as the Ghost of Haiyan. Her squadron appeared and disappeared across the battlefield, destroying supply lines and command ships, spreading confusion wherever they went. Captain Dowan, now promoted to Commodore, led assault forces against Council shipyards. Using fold space technology, his fleet struck deep into enemy territory, destroying the facilities where Council warships were built and repaired. Dr. Minji's Ember weapons proved even more effective than anyone had hoped. The contained starfire burned through shields that had been considered invincible. Council ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia died like burning paper. After 8 months of war, the Council had lost over 200 ships. Human losses were less than 50. The elder species that had expected a quick victory found themselves losing battles. They should have won. Admiral Taiho watched the latest battle reports with grim satisfaction. The Council was strong, but they were not unbeatable. They had become soft over thousands of years of easy victories. They had forgotten what it meant to face an enemy that would not surrender. Now they were remembering, and now it was time to end this war. Taiho called his senior officers together. The council is weakening. Their supply lines are broken. Their fleets are scattered. It is time to strike at the heart. He pointed to a star map showing the council citadel, the space station where the elder species made their decisions. We are going there, and we are going to finish this. The final phase of the war was about to begin. The war lasted 11 months. When it ended not with a treaty signed in defeat, but with Admiral Taiho's fleet orbiting the council citadel itself. The journey to that moment had been brutal. Human forces had pushed through council territory system by system, breaking through defensive lines that had stood for 10,000 years. Lieutenant Commander Yunji's Ghost Fleet had crippled the council's ability to coordinate their defenses. Commodore Dohwan's assault forces had destroyed their largest shipyards. And Dr. Minji's Ember weapons had made every battle shorter and bloodier than the council expected. Now, 112 human warships surrounded the station that had ruled the galaxy for longer than humanity had existed. The council's remaining defenders were scattered and broken. Their great fleets were burning debris. Their ancient pride was dust. Admiral Taiho stood on the bridge of the horizon, looking at the massive structure that filled his view screen. The council citadel was beautiful in a cold way, a ring of metal and crystal, large enough to hold millions. For thousands of years, it had been the center of galactic power. Now it was surrounded by the ships of a species that the council had once dismissed as clever animals. Sir, his communications officer reported. The council is requesting to negotiate. Taiho nodded. Tell them President Sujin will speak with them shortly. Until then, they will wait. Making them wait was intentional. For 30 years, humanity had waited for the council, had begged for fair treatment, had asked politely for respect. Now the elder species would learn what waiting felt like. President Sujin arrived on the horizon 8 hours later, accompanied by Ambassador Yuna and General Junho. They had traveled from Earth on the fastest ship available, because this was a moment too important to handle through messages. Sujin looked at the citadel through the bridge windows. I never thought I would see this place. None of us did, Yuna replied. 30 years ago, we were signing a treaty of survival. Now we are here to write a new future. They beamed their communication to the council chamber. The screen showed a gathering of broken leaders. Vrethkai was there, his black shell cracked in places, his compound eyes dull with defeat. Around him sat representatives of the other elder species, all looking at the human leaders with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Sujin spoke first. The war is over. You have lost. Vrethkai's voice was quieter than before. The arrogance burned away by 11 months of impossible defeats. What do you want? Territory? Resources? We will negotiate. You will not negotiate, Sujin interrupted. You will listen. She let the silence stretch before continuing. 30 years ago, you gave us a treaty that was designed to contain us. You thought you were dealing with a primitive species that would eventually fade away. You were wrong. 20 years ago, you started planning to destroy us. You thought we did not know. You thought your spies were clever and your plans were secret. But we knew. We always knew. 10 years ago, you realized we were growing stronger than you expected. You panicked. You made demands. You tried to cripple us before we became too powerful. But it was already too late. She leaned forward, her dark eyes hard as stone. You had every chance to treat us as partners. Every chance to build something together. Instead, you treated us as threats to be controlled. And now here we are. Vrethkai made a clicking sound, but it was weak, without the mockery of before. What do you demand? Our surrender? Our destruction? Sujin shook her head. I do not want to destroy you. Destruction is what you wanted for us. I want something better." She stood and walked closer to the screen, so every council member could see her face clearly. "The Galactic Council is dissolved. Effective immediately. In its place, there will be a new assembly of equals. Every sentient species will have one vote. No more elder races and younger races. No more rulers and subjects. Everyone equal." Shock rippled through the chamber. For thousands of years, the elder species had controlled everything. The idea that they would sit as equals with species they had conquered was unthinkable. "You cannot do this," one of the council members protested. "We have ruled for. You have ruled because you had power," Juno interrupted. "You no longer have power. The choice is simple. Join the new assembly as equal members, or watch as every species you have oppressed rises against you. After what we have done, they will believe it is possible." Una stepped forward. She had spent 30 years dealing with these creatures. She knew how they thought, how they feared, how they calculated. "Let me explain something," she said. "You think this is about revenge. It is not. If we wanted revenge, we would burn the Citadel and leave you to fight among yourselves. Instead, we are offering you a chance to be part of something new." She looked at Rethkai directly. "You asked how we grew so strong. You asked how we defeated species that had been traveling between stars before we learned to make fire. The answer is simple. You underestimated us because we were young. You thought young meant weak. You thought young meant stupid. But young also means we grow fast. Young means we learn quickly. Young means we are not trapped by the way things have always been done." She gestured at the human fleet visible through the Citadel windows. "You gave us 30 years of peace. You thought you were containing us. Instead, you gave us time. Time to study your technology and improve it. Time to watch your tactics and find weaknesses. Time to prepare for the war you were always planning to start." Her voice softened, but her words remained sharp. "We do not hate you. We were never your enemies. We only wanted to exist, to grow, to be part of this galaxy. You made us fight. You made us become warriors. But we do not want to be warriors forever." President Sujin nodded. "The Assembly of Equals begins today. Every species that agrees to peaceful cooperation is welcome. Those who refuse will be left alone, but they will have no voice in galactic affairs." The council members looked at each other. They had ruled for so long that the idea of equality seemed impossible. But they also looked at the human ships surrounding them, ships that had destroyed their fleets and broken their power. They had no choice. One by one, they agreed. The Galactic Council was dissolved that day. The Assembly of Sentient Peoples was created in its place, with humanity as a founding member. Other species, races that had been crushed under Council rule for thousands of years, joined eagerly. For the first time in galactic history, power was shared rather than taken. Admiral Taiho returned to Earth as a hero. Lieutenant Commander Yunji, the ghost of Haiyan, was promoted to Admiral. Commodore Dohan received command of the first Joint Human-Alien Task Force. Sergeant Haniel retired to New Bizon, where the pass he defended was renamed in his honor. Dr. Minji continued her research, but now she worked on technologies for peace instead of war. Ambassador Yuna became the first human speaker of the new assembly, guiding the transition from empire to partnership. And across the galaxy, species who had been oppressed for millennia looked to the stars with new hope. The humans had shown them something they had forgotten was possible. A young species, barely old enough to matter, had faced the most powerful force in the galaxy. They had been told to kneel. They had refused. They had walked away from a broken peace, fought a war they should not have won, and changed everything. President Sujing gave one final speech to the people of Earth on the day the assembly was formed. They called us young. They called us primitive. They called us a threat to be contained. And maybe they were right about some of that. We are young. We are still learning. We make mistakes. She smiled, the first real smile she'd allowed herself in months. But we also dream. We also fight for what we believe. We also refuse to accept that the way things are is the way things must always be. That is what makes us human. That is what they never understood. Today, we join a galaxy as equals. Tomorrow, we build something better than what came before. And every species that was once told to kneel now knows the truth. She looked at the camera, at every human watching across 17 worlds. The only chains that hold you are the ones you accept. Break them, walk away, and never stop reaching for the stars. The war was over. The peace was beginning. And humanity, the young species that refused to kneel, had changed the galaxy forever.